What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 award winner Innovation-wise, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And remember, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. You know Dr. Vibe loves having new people, new friends coming on, and this is definitely a new friend. There's just no doubts about it.
Agreed.
She's rocking it. She has a great sense of humor. You'll think, this lady does what she does and she's so much fun. Yeah, she is. She's lots of fun. And plus, I love Prince and she dressed in purple today. So she didn't even know that. So there she goes. Let's have some fun. Let's say hello to our new friend, Dr. Amy Ellis, is a licensed clinical psychologist and the assistant director of the Trauma Resolution and Integration Program, TRIP, at Nova Southeastern University. And actually, I have a friend of mine who actually did online courses at that university. TRIP is a university-based community mental health center that supplies a contextual approach to treating and understanding survivors of prolonged childhood sexual and physical abuse. Dr. Ellis has also developed clinical programming focusing on trauma-informed affirmative care for sexual and gender minorities, as well as gender-based services focusing on male-identifying individuals at TRIP. She is involved in a variety of leadership activities within the American Psychological Association, including service as a consulting editor for 3 peer-reviewed journals, and she is also the editor for the APA's Division 29 psychotherapy website. Currently, she serves as co-principal investigator on a large comparative effectiveness trial funded by the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Initiative. Yes, I said that. I got it all in. So tonight, she's going to be sharing a little bit about herself, but more about the journey or the concern of sexual and gender minorities and sexual abuse. Dr. Amy, how we doing?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So we have to say thank you to someone for introducing us together. Who do we have to thank?
Joan Cook, who is my lifeline and favorite professional mentor.
Yes. And Joan, if you're not watching live, I hope you're watching or listening on the replay. Thank you so much for introducing me to this wonderful lady, because we are hanging out and having some fun, but we are going to get serious because this is a very important conversation topic that needs to be addressed.
True.
So before we go any further, like we always do when we have new friends on the Dr. Vibe Show, lovely bio, professional, but where did you grow up, family life, etc.? Can you share a little bit with us?
Love it, because I am proud of my New York heritage. So although I'm in Florida right now, I will always and forever be a New Yorker. So born and raised on Long Island, New York. Grew up there for 24 years and then came down to Florida. Did that for a couple years, did a brief stint in Boston, decided it was way too cold for my now Floridian blood, and I am back here and they can't get rid of me. So yeah.
I hear you. So your early days growing up, school difficult, school easy, family life, what about that?
I love that question because I think my go-to answer is no, school was always easy and fine and good. And then I also have this simultaneous story that I was put in remedial math in 3rd grade. So I know, right? So basic addition and subtraction don't come naturally. And what I will say is that I'm a researcher and I do a lot of statistics. So I've somehow managed to get through the math disability type issues that I have, and now I'm doing some fun stuff with stats. So a little bit of both. Good in English and history and not so good in the whole math realm.
Well, that's why they invented calculators, right?
Darn Skippy. So yeah. And have cell phones.
Well, you know what? And I like to also compliment Dr. Amy for a number of things, but she has a lot of social media savvy because she was retweeting, and before we went on live, she asked me to share some of the information with her Facebook family. And it works because we have people watching live on Facebook, people watching live on the platform, people watching on YouTube. And thank you, everyone who's watching live. And if you're going to watch in the replay, but if you're watching live, please feel free to make comments and ask questions. Love you to. And if you want to, on the Get Vocal platform, we have a guest, and we also have M. Sanchez. If you want to stop in and maybe ask a question or make a comment, please feel free. Let's get back to you education-wise. So you had some challenges when it came to math, etc. Were your parents driving you to pursue education at an early age? Like education was important?
Yes, it was important. And I know like going to school and doing well, that was really emphasized. It was never like the expectation that you get all A's or what's wrong with you for not having a 4.0. So it was really just keep trying and work hard. But I wouldn't say that it was ever stressed to me to go for like beyond college. Like that was kind of the expectation. You go to college, you get your like 4-year degree, and then you work. I really kind of deviated and had to deal with some like pushback in terms of why are you going for your PhD? That's a waste. Get working stuff. So yeah, I was.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Were you the first person in your family to go that far with your education, getting your PhD? So was it? It sounds like you shared, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was pushback for you to pursue that. Mm-hmm. Why was there pushback?
I don't think anyone understood. Like back, I'm making it sound like I'm like really ancient here, but like back then, it wasn't really understood that you needed a PhD in order to be a clinical psychologist. And so I don't think that there was much awareness that my life would have kind of plateaued at a certain point and I wouldn't be able to do the things that I wanted to do. So I think it was just a lack of understanding and really knowing what do psychologists do. Probably even back then, there was more bias towards you go to med school, you become a psychiatrist, if anything, if you want to focus on the psyche. So yeah.
Then where did it come? The influence come from, and the moment come from saying, I want to get into psychology. Where did that come from? Did it come from your parents? Was it a self-discovery moment?
Okay, so like this is my story. You're gonna love this, right? So age 5, we're gonna go way back. Age 5, I published my first novel. It was titled.
Hold on. What age?
5. Hear me out. Yeah, age 5.
Okay, I shut my. I'm gone. Okay.
No, it's good.
Okay.
Titled Dots. Dots are on dresses. Dots are on polka dots. It was, I mean, really revolutionary stuff. So really from age 5 onward, I wanted to be an author. I was very big into English. I loved reading. I thought I was going to write. I was always writing and coming up with my own fiction. So yeah, not really my first novel, but so I'd always kind of grown up thinking that I was going to be an author and going to English. And then somewhere along the lines, it just kind of shifted. I think I just started to really enjoy history. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be an archaeologist. I'm going to go to Egypt. I'm going to uncover tombs and mummies and all of this really fun stuff and hieroglyphics. And I remember when I was 16 years old, we had to take one of those vocational tests, you know, where you like answer all the questions and then they spew out what you're going to be when you grow up. And it said that I was going to be in the human service profession, so like social worker, therapist. I remember thinking it was absolute garbage. And why didn't they know that I was going to be an author and an archaeologist? Like, this is my passion. And so long story short, it's also about that time that, you know, you're 16 years old, you're going through some stuff. I think kind of looking around you, you see that other people are going through a lot of stuff. There's eating disorders, self-harm, substance abuse, depression, anxiety. And I just kept thinking to myself, this is a population that is so neglected. Like adults are just telling kids, it's all hormones, it's your age, it's not a big deal, and really silencing an entire generation of people. And I thought to myself, I don't want to do that. I need to change that. And so I think that's where my love for psychology comes in. And the reason why I point out the author thing and the archaeologist thing is because I think psychology is that. It's about uncovering and digging to find people's truth and the truth of different generations and ideas. And I also think it's about creating our own narrative. So really figuring out what our story is and what other people's stories of us are and how we contend with that. So long-winded.
It's fabulous because I'm very much about controlling the narrative. And we had a offline conversation. I think I made that comment or used that phrase to you in a previous conversation. It's very important to control our own narrative, because if we don't control our narrative, it's going to get defined for us.
Exactly.
So I just want to shout out, there's Zach P. and also M. Sanchez, and also Dr. Tachi, who is one of the great people online. She hosts the livest live stream, double entendre there, that covers media, tech, and pop culture. It's on every Wednesday evening, 5 p.m. Eastern time. It's on Instagram Live, and then at 6 p.m. Eastern time, it's on Facebook Live, Periscope Live, and LinkedIn Live. So thanks stopping in, Dr. Tachi. Is always more than happy to have you if you want to ask questions or make comments. Before we get now drilling right down to the subject, two conversation pieces. Do you remember your graduation day when you got your PhD?
True confession, didn't go.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I can make something up though. Like it was a really proud day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a reason?
Didn't really want to go. I don't,
Okay.
I know you see me here and it probably seems like I'm very extroverted, but I'm incredibly introverted. And the idea of being up on a stage when you get hooded and like people are all staring at you, I was just like, no, I'm good. Just give me the paper. Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry.
So why do you decide to focus your studies on gender? Where did that, because you graduate, you have the choice of studying, going down so many different paths.
So true.
Why did you choose sexual and gender minorities as your journey?
I know it probably sounds very cliche, but I think it chose me. So I originally started off, when I went to grad school, I thought I was going to work with parents and children, and really studying like 0 to 3. I'm very interested in the bonds that kids have with their adults and like their early learning environments, etc. And I ended up meeting my mentor, Dr. Stephen Gold, who focuses on trauma, kind of like literally wrote the book on trauma, and was one of the founders of APA's trauma psychology division. So really awesome guy to know. And what he does is he works on with adults who have suffered from neglectful and dysfunctional family environments. And so it was kind of like it dumped me into that, where I wasn't working with children anymore, but I was really working on understanding adults who had grown up with these types of experiences. So that's where my first foray into trauma psychology came from. And then really over time, it's kind of merged. I do consider myself a feminist, which, as the true definition of it, is equality between women and men. And so I think that while there's a lot going on for women in terms of the Me Too movement and understanding trauma and intimate partner violence, believe it or not, a neglected population is men. And so I think that in part we need to understand men in order to understand women and to bridge that equality. So that's where the gender comes in. And then really sexual and gender minorities has been infused with personal experiences, with the experiences of my students, my clients, and realizing that, we have trauma and then we have, gender, and then we have sexual and gender minorities in terms of just less and less is known about those individuals and less is done for those individuals. And so I want to help the vulnerable. I want to help the underserved.
Where do you get that passion to help the underserved? Is that something in your family, or is that something you saw something and said, this is what I have to address in my journey?
Yeah, I think quite selfishly, let me actually speak for myself. Quite selfishly, I get a lot by helping other people, whether it's through mentorship or through therapy. There is very much so that bi-directional kind of connection that happens. So even if I'm not talking about myself and I'm just helping someone else, it literally fills my heart. So I think it's just I've learned what fills me up and I've chased after that.
Nice. Let's get right into this topic. First conversation piece I want to ask, what is the biggest or most common misunderstanding that people have about this area?
Well,
or some of them?
yeah,
Because I don't know if it's, let's look at some of them and maybe we can delve into each one separately.
yeah. I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind is this idea that sexual and gender minorities or LGBTQ plus individuals are that way because they experience sexual abuse. So, like, the abuse made them gay or it made them trans or whatever it might be. And so that's probably one of the most pervasive ones. And I might even argue it's a little bit common within the psychology community, and we're really working to debunk that.
Okay. I see we have Olivia.
Hi, Olivia.
Hey.
It sounds like you two know each other. Is this correct?
A little bit.
Okay.
She's
Well,
one of my
Olivia,
students.
okay. Well, thank you for jumping on, Olivia. It's appreciated. Um, I know she's an outstanding, because I don't use the word awesome. Awesome is overworked. She's an outstanding person. Um, when we're talking about this subject, what comes to your mind?
Me?
Yes,
Sorry,
you.
I've never done
You're
this
the
before.
you're the
So
star now.
Oh, what comes to mind is how little people know about this. Like how it's so misunderstood, I guess.
Okay. And before, I just want to shout out to Lala, who's also on the Get Vocal program platform. Sorry. Why do you feel people know so little about it? And then I'll also ask Amy's input, but I want to get it from you first.
For me.
Yep.
I
Why do
thought
you
you
think
said
people know
Lala,
so little
sorry.
about it?
Oh, why do I think people know so little about it? I think LGBTQ visibility is only, such a recent thing, and there's just so many myths to debunk. We're getting through them one at a time as society. It's hard to soak in all this knowledge so quickly. So maybe we just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Okay. Good stuff. And I appreciate you. I don't think you had expected me to ask you to communicate, but you're doing a great job. So just relax. Dr. Vibes here. He's got your back. No worries. And if I don't got your back, Amy's gonna come up before it and knock some sense into my bald head. So there you go. Amy, what are your thoughts? What are the reasons why there is a lack of knowledge? What do you feel are some of the reasons why?
Well, I think Olivia nailed it. I think that there's just a lack of awareness and knowledge about that. And what I might also add is that it's a population, sexual and gender minorities, that is really marked by a lot of silence. And that was built out of safety, right? You have to be silent. You can't disclose your sexual orientation or your gender identity, lest there be harassment or discrimination or stigmatization, or actually, in real cases, abuse and trauma and violence. And so if we have a community of people that are silenced and not talking, then it's really easy for us to think, it's just a small amount of people that identify that way. We don't have to worry about that. We can push it outside of our awareness, and we don't have to confront it. And I think in today's slightly more liberal times, where we're really discovering that there's a population that now feels a bit more empowered to speak up and to speak out. And we're discovering, whoa, no, we need to know more. We need to study more. We need to help more.
Okay. So what have been some of the key causes of the openness?
That's a very good question. I think it's probably some legislature changes. And I think it's also a series of very important figures who have spoken up and talked. We have Harvey Milk, who was one of the was the first openly gay politician to speak up. And we have other advocates who have kind of paved the way to normalize fitting under the SGM umbrella. So I think really positive role models, celebrities even. Nowadays it's pretty commonplace that you find another celebrity who's coming out or identifying as non-binary, and we're all just kind of like, cool, whatever. So I think it just really desensitizes us to the sensationalism of it.
Olivia, anything you want to add?
No, just that I agree with that whole visibility thing, that, when you choose to just be yourself, you don't know who you're communicating.
Okay.
How are you communicating?
So this conversation piece is for both of you. I'm going to ask Dr. Amy first. When you first started down this journey, did you get any pushback, and are you still getting pushback?
Oh yeah, people don't understand why I'm doing this. I would say it's whenever I'm kind of describing my research, people are like, "Wow, that's really nichey," and well, I mean, I guess, and it's necessary. But I also think it's just people go, "Why is that important?" Like it shouldn't be, or it isn't, and which highlights what Olivia's saying. Like people just don't know. It's just not out there. So yeah, and then I think there's a lot of judgments and assumptions. So if you're doing this, what does that mean about you? What does that mean about the people that you work with? People are very invasive when it comes to wanting to know why you study what you study.
Okay. Olivia?
Oh yeah, I really see that too. Even like in a work field as liberal as psychology, it's still stigmatized, definitely. Unfortunately.
That's concerning because I would think that your discipline would be, the conception is 30,000 foot level, that it's more open, a more liberal think tank, or how to say environment. But it sounds like it still needs a lot of change. It needs a lot of pushing needs to be done. Is that correct?
Yeah, sometimes the way I describe it is, so in the American Psychological Association, we have divisions that were formed, and they kind of go in numerical order and sequential order. So like the first division, and we're all the way up to the 56th division. And so Division 44 is the division that focuses on lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans kind of folks. So that's really late in the game. And then beyond that, we have Division 56, which is trauma psychology. And that was only formulated within like the past, I'll butcher the dates, but 15 years. So when you look at it, it's trauma has only been studied through the APA, through a division, that focus, relatively recently. And then LGBTQ issues only a little bit beforehand. So we're a little delayed.
So when you're dealing with this community and this subject, what are they telling you? And both you can provide input, but Dr. Amy, what are they telling you?
Actually, I want to pass it off to Olivia because she is a current fourth year doctoral student. And so I feel like I know, right? So she's in the heart of it. I mean, Olivia, what would you say? Like, what do they teach you, aside from me? Don't count me. What do they teach you about sexual and gender minorities in your doctoral program?
I would say that this is a loaded question because I don't know if my program is same across the board, but I guess the discrimination I still feel is present. It's a lot of, honestly a lot of the older psychologists that are lacking in like taking their CEs, their continuing education credits, and they're not choosing to be educated in diversity. And I don't know if it's like a lapse of time, but when I hear professors use the wrong pronouns purposefully, or have a lack of respect for this minority group, it's usually the older folks.
And Olivia, when you decided, okay, I'm just going to, before I get to my next conversation piece, M. Sanchez is saying some people are afraid of knowledge. I believe that as a country, we are so reactive instead of being proactive, which makes anyone who wants to study a, quote, unknown, unquote, population is an outsider.
Beautifully.
So have you both in your journey felt that you're outsiders and you're still outsiders?
I mean, honestly, it's so peculiar within psychology about this idea of inside and outside. And I know Olivia and I have had many conversations about this. In psychology, there's even sometimes a stigmatization against mental illness. So we're often not able to disclose that we're in therapy, or that we are depressed or anxious or have other forms of mental illness for fear of judgment. So it's such an ironic, I don't know. It's something so bizarre that occurs within our field. Well, and
it sounds like, first of all, that there's judgment on the community, and then there's judgment on you because you're studying or going into that community. So it's almost like a double entendre.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I think, I do want to say, I think it's changing. I think people are starting to realize how important this is. Like the one thing I can kind of throw out there is that a large majority of lesbian, gay, bisexual individuals, purposely not including transgender there, LGBT individuals will report to therapy. They may not be coming in for sexual orientation issues, but they're coming in. And so just the importance of being able to ask and have open conversations there, I think we're moving towards that. So there's less of a stigmatization, that we can ask those questions, that can be out in the open, that it's normal to want to study this because this is a large majority of our clients. It's not a small percentage of folks. We're moving there. It's just times are slow.
Olivia, anything you want to add?
Just that I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, her and I are in the same community of professionals, but it's something I also see in like other institutions and places that I've worked.
All right, good. With this topic, we're not hearing a lot about it. We're hearing more about it now, but how big of a concern is it? Like, we're only going on limited information. How big of a concern? What are we not hearing?
So if we kind of return to that myth of sexual abuse causes someone to become LGBT, I think this is the issue. So we are born with our gender identity, and sometimes that kind of matches up with our genitalia, and sometimes that doesn't. That's where the idea of trans comes in. Sometimes we are born with sexual orientations that are heterosexual, sometimes gay, sometimes bisexual, pansexual, asexual, we can go through it all. So we're born with it, right? Which means that it doesn't get caused by anything. But when we grow up identifying, or maybe not identifying, but being LGBTQ+, that makes us realize that we're a bit of an outsider. There is something different about us than the cisgender heteronormative culture that we're surrounded by. When we're a little bit different, we tend to shut down. We tend to feel, just kind of step back. And that is what makes us vulnerable to sexual abuse. And so I think it's important to kind of understand that this is a prominent issue. This is happening because there are these kids, and just kind of speaking to that part first, there are kids who are quite vulnerable and susceptible to adult or older children perpetrating acts of sexual violence because this is a population that's often silenced and forgotten. So it's huge. And then on top of it, our numbers might actually be serious underestimates. Because again, if you're silenced, you're not going to speak up and say, hey, I was sexually abused and I'm also a sexual and gender minority. As you said, it's like that double risk.
Right. And Olivia, anything you want to add to that? And before you do, Zach P said on your last comment before the one you just made, well said, Dr. Ellis.
Thank you, Zach.
A fan club. I didn't know I was dealing with a fan club tonight. I feel good. Olivia, anything you want to add to what Dr. Ellis has just shared with us?
Just also that it's kind of a double-edged sword with society playing a role in why people are being abused. The way you treat people, the stigma you place on others is part of this sociological problem.
Okay. So adding on to that, with the individuals you speak in this community, do they feel that, I guess they come in different parts of their journey, but do they still feel that they're in a threatening environment?
Oh, yes. So when we say coming out, sometimes I think we assume that you come out one time. It's like this beautiful unveiling of like, hey, I'm gay, like, hello world. It's not like that. Coming out, whether it's about gender or sexual orientation, is a very slow, deliberate process across different circles. So you can be out with your friends, but not out with your family. You can be out at your volunteer workplace, but not out in your more professional domain. And so part of that is because it may not be safe to do so. Whether you fear, listen, I think there's just a study on LinkedIn. So obviously, I don't know how accurate that is, but LinkedIn did a study looking at sexual and gender minorities and showing that over half, the vast majority, were fearful of coming out to their employers for fear that there'd be some sort of retaliation or they wouldn't get a promotion, et cetera. So there are real consequences in the world of coming out.
Right. Olivia?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's protected to come out in your workplace without repercussion of being fired. I don't think we have that protection yet. I could be wrong,
do not.
But
it's interesting because many people would say that this community has advanced in regards to their rights in the workplace, but you make it sound that it's still a tough navigation, especially in the workplace.
Particularly in the workplace, you can face explicit bias where someone will say, you're such and such, you're not getting a promotion. But a lot more times we're talking about microaggressions. And these are the things that really can kind of weigh on you and contribute to minority stress. It's the little comments. It's the subtle things. I always use the example of when you see somebody who has an accent, and you say, and where are you from? And they go, Denver. And you go, but where are you really from? And so I think, right? So it's a lot of that occurs even with sexual and gender minorities in terms of making assumptions about what someone's pronouns are because of looking at, what you see on the outside as though their gender expression might match their gender identity, which it may or may not. It's making assumptions about who someone's dating or married to, or maybe they're in an open relationship, so they're dating quite a few people. So it's these types of assumptions and then kind of remarks that I think really weigh on people on a daily basis in the workplace, in your social life, everywhere.
Great. Want to shout out to Big Bad Brad, and also earlier on Melvin Lars was on. He's jumped back out So I just talked about the workplace. What about the family level?
Ooh, family. Man, I tell you, family is awful because family can be a huge support, right? We all know that our families can be a source of anchoring and support, whether it's financial, emotional, stability, etc. And so all too often, at least SGM youths, they're often kicked out of their house. Okay. There's a huge homelessness problem with.
So I just want to reference the correlation between this community and homelessness. Didn't even know.
Yeah,
so that's the news. And both of you want to share on this because that just said, okay, I need to hear some more. And I think that some other people either watching live, watching on the replay, listening live, listening to the replay. I want to settle in on this. So sorry to interrupt, but I think it's very important.
No, I'll just keep talking. That's the thing. I'm from New York.
It won't stop. You're just sharing. Don't worry, you're not talking. You're sharing.
No, so homelessness is a huge problem because if youth come out to their family or their family find out about their sexual orientation or their gender identity, if it's a highly religious or kind of other idealistic sort of family environment, that's it. This isn't accepted in the house. Get out.
Wow.
And so often that's why you'll see that there's a lot of homeless centers that do focus on sexual orientation and a particular gender. I actually just saw that there's this really great group. I think it might be out in California that's offering a 5-night voucher at a hotel for trans individuals because they experience even higher rates of homelessness, suicide. All of the outcomes. Yeah.
Okay. Olivia, what would you like to add? I know your head is nodding. Talk to me.
Oh, I'm just so on board with this. And also just reading recently that 1 out of 7 homeless youth will be victimized human trafficking.
Well, that's another layer there, the human trafficking. So
yes.
That's a whole other, just layer, which means Dr. Amy has to come back. Thank you, Dr. Amy. So
thank you. No, now you gotta get Olivia. Are you kidding me? This isn't me. This
both of you. I need both of you together.
This
you guys
is Dr.
are
Ellis.
just actually, yeah. I think I'm going to bring. Actually, there's a few ladies I know who are influencers in that area. Maybe we should get all of you on together on a conversation. I think that would be a good idea to tie in this community, homelessness, human trafficking.
Absolutely.
It's all correlated.
Really is.
Two things are coming to my mind. Data collection.
Mm-hmm.
How challenging is it to get data? Because obviously your studies, etc., you got to do papers, you got to do reports. How easy or how challenging is data collection when it comes to this community?
Dr. Vibe, let me tell you, this is the stuff that Joan and I stay up at night fretting about. So it's tough, and I'll share some of the reasons why it's tough. One, because people are reluctant to speak up, right? So it's a silenced population. So why are they going to come out online, in person, being like, hey? But number two, there's a lot of justified concern that researchers are studying the population to do harm. And honestly, it is justified because in the past, psychologists, I mean like way past, psychologists would study this behavior as abnormal. In our DSM, which is like our Bible of psychological disorders, just recently, they removed some of the diagnoses in terms of like being transgender. That's no longer a diagnosis, but a couple of years ago, that was something I could label somebody as, which means that it's pathological. And so there's a lot of mistrust from psychologists that we're just studying to do more harmful or deleterious effects than we are to help. So in terms of gathering data, it's really helpful for any of my research collectors out there. It is really helpful to have a team in which at least some of the members identify as part of the SGM population and are willing to be out about that in the research. So again, you can be SGM and not be out in the circle. So doing that kind of builds a little bit of a connection. We've been having that issue. So I know Joan talked to you a little bit about our study that we have going on where we're actively recruiting. We need like 344 sexual and gender minority male identifying individuals to run these groups, and I can share more about that later. But we have been struggling to kind of get the buy-in from people where they're believing that we're genuinely in it for the goodness of our own heart, and we're not there to publicize anything negative or harmful whatsoever.
So, Amy, I'm going to throw it out there that if you and Dr. Joan want to come on and just talk about the study, you can promote it here.
Yeah.
The invite is open. So you've got my contact information. I put it in your lap. I want you to run with it. I'd love you to come on and talk about it. It's a very important thing. And I can also make sure the conversation gets shared on some other platforms like the Good Men Project.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. We know all the good context that we can. It's like it's a snowball effect, right? The more people you tell, hopefully you reach the people who are underserved and silenced. So yes. Thank you.
Olivia, anything you want to add in regards to the data piece, gathering of data?
Not as of now. I think that it would be really cool for Dr. Ellis to talk about her study because it does exactly what she says is the problem, that they fear psychologists. They don't know what our intentions are. Her study actually asked them, what do you want? And they said, we want peers to help us. We want people who are us to help us. We want to be understood by those who know us best. So
just on that point there, I'm not a member of that community. And if I wanted to help that community, what would be some of my best practices to help that community?
Wait, hold on, like time out. Do you understand how amazing it is that you are asking that question? That's it. That's like step one is exact. Yes, M. Sanchez, that is it. You are already asking the question of what can I do to help? And I think that's number one, is just suspending our assumptions that we know better or we can possibly understand someone else's experience. And heck, that's how we should approach all human connections. So you can just extend that beyond. I think it's other things like educating yourself and then being willing to educate others. So not being silent.
M says, I'm already doing it. Zach P says, by asking the question, you are part of the solution. Thank you very much.
I'm not wrong.
Olivia, what would you like to add, Olivia? If anything, you're like the rubber stamping the conversation, right?
Come on, you did your presentation. You got this.
I think you really nailed it on the head. Also, just not being afraid to stand up when you hear something that just sounds wrong to you.
Well, it's interesting, and you say that because we're in information overload these days when it comes to the world. I'm going to parking lot that a little bit later and I'll have you think about this already. Where should people go to get their information? But I'm going to parking lot that for now, but don't forget and don't let me forget it. In regards to this situation about the abuse, do you ever get feedback or deal with the authorities like police, justice? Does that ever come up in any of your sites, or do you have any encounters either with those organizations directly, or do you hear comments from the community that you're working with on how they're handling this?
It's a good question. I haven't so much heard stuff about like police and those types of authorities, but I do hear a lot about military culture. And so I don't, just kind of the idea of like, don't ask, don't tell. And so like that type of authority of like more like a systemic community authority. Yeah.
Okay, good. Olivia, rubber stamping, or you want to say something?
Sure, just that I think we're still getting to a place in society where we even acknowledge same-sex sexual abuse. So that's still in progress. I don't know. I can't speak to like police knowledge
just
on
throwing
that.
it out there. Then I want to build on that. When you're speaking to individuals in this community, is it something that they experienced when they were younger within their own family environment?
Oh, yeah. In terms of abuse, yes, absolutely. I mean, oftentimes you'll hear child abuse is prolific. Childhood sexual abuse is prolific in SGM youth. And again, it points out to the idea that they're a vulnerable population, right? They're a little different, right? Because they don't fit in, not because there's something wrong with them, but because they don't fit in with like the cis-het sort of world. And that makes perpetrators able to kind of scout them out and then groom them for sexual abuse. And so if it's not within the family system, then you may often have sometimes like a neglectful or invalidating family environment. And then that leaves them vulnerable to extra familial abuse.
Go ahead, Olivia, because my mind is trailing because I got a number of things to add on to what Dr. Amy just said. Anything you want to add on to that?
I'm rubber stamping.
Good. All right, that's good. She's good. Then, okay. If members of this community experience this within their families when they were younger, is it a situation that they're not used to anything else and they're experiencing it when they're older? Is it one of those things that they know nothing else and that's what they do? That's what, not what they do, what they're exposed to. They know nothing. They know other solutions, so they just say that's okay.
That's a really good question. I think that's part of, some people might argue that, and that might have been like a little bit more of the old school way of thinking, that people are just kind of recapitulating their abuse because that's all that they know. Instead, what I might say is that if you've been abused as a child, you're twice as likely to be re-victimized as an adult. And the reason for that is because you likely didn't develop a set of skills that enabled you to kind of determine who's a good partner, or to not put yourself in risky situations, or maybe because of the abuse and the other experiences you had, you're using substances to cope. And so now you're using substances, and so you're more vulnerable. And so I would kind of characterize it more as like, it's not like that's all I know. I don't know how to navigate those situations any differently.
Dr. Tatchis is saying to Dr. Amy, excellent way of framing it.
Thank you.
And actually, you two should probably meet because she's actually located in Fort Lauderdale too.
Hello, neighbor.
So definitely, and I will hail up Dr. Tachi as I always do because she has her PhD in mass communications.
Ooh, nice. Always a good person.
So, Dr. Tachi, if you give me permission, I will share your contact information with Dr. Amy. I know you would have fabulous conversations. She says, yes, please. It's a done deal. I love that.
It's a match.
That's why I love doing this when I have people who don't know about each other and now they want to know more about each other. That is outstanding. I love it. I absolutely love that. What are some of the most challenging things that you have encountered, each one of you, along this journey?
I'll let you think for a second, Olivia. I would have to say it is incredibly painful to watch people who go through every single day just the different stressors and discrimination that they face. I am one person. I know that I can do a lot. I can do a lot for that one person. I can do a lot to stand up, as Olivia said, and to educate and to advocate. And unfortunately, there are socio-political, cultural influences, and it is hard. I'm thinking of my first client who I treated when I was a student at Trip was a trans man, and he would come in and just seem so, he was the most joyful freaking human being. Like, he was larger than life, small frame, large personality, etc. But he would sometimes come into therapy and just be really deflated and just say, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired of having to educate people. I'm tired of having to stand up for myself and others. And I just want to be, and I can't. Like, I cannot let my guard down. And so I think it's hard. It's hard to sit with people in that and know that to a certain extent we're a little helpless, and we can all be doing a little bit more to try and foster growth in society.
Olivia.
I think this myth, actually, that being abused influences your sexual orientation, that's been really hard for me to sit in the room with, because people believe that their abuser has that level of power over them, and that they are who they are because of what happened to them.
Great point.
Olivia, thank you. I know that was not easy for you to share, but I appreciate that coming from your heart. So thank you so much. That meant a lot. So thank you. You feel comfortable enough to share that. Then let me go on the other end. Share a happy moment.
Oh my God, there's so many. So like I cannot share like my top because there's just too many.
Okay, just one is fine.
Honestly, it's connecting with people, and I think it's the small times as well. It's not like some big pivotal moment. It's recognizing when people make the decision that they're going to get top surgery, or like, hey, I've decided I want to use this pronoun. And to actually like live and walk with them through that journey of coming out to themselves and embracing their identity, that is the most privileged position a therapist can ever be in, to like walk that with someone. So yeah, like tons of those.
Olivia.
The same thing. I'm tearing up thinking of a few people. Like, just, we have a really amazing career where you actually get to like just walk that journey. I feel like privileged every day.
Wonderful. That's great. Over on the YouTube site, Foresight for YouTube says reporting abuse. If you say something and you get an echo, you tend not to speak again. Sometimes you have to speak and keep on speaking until you're heard. And oftentimes you talk how to abuse people, and your abuser sometimes it becomes who you are. Hope I made sense there. Hope that made some sense.
It sounds like the idea of kind of internalizing a voice that might be critical or harmful. And sometimes we do that. We take the outside voices that are perpetrator-esque or critical or harmful, and we hold them as our own. And my hope is that whether it's in therapy or 12-step groups or spiritual counseling, that we can all kind of figure out how to separate ourselves out from that. and to develop the courage, if that's something that someone wants, to be able to speak up and to keep pushing on and keep on keeping on in terms of, hey, I was abused, or this isn't right, or this isn't okay. So I hear you. Yeah.
Rubber stamp, Amy? Rubber stamp, Olivia.
Yes, rubber stamp. It was so well said.
Dr. Amy, American Psychological Association. You're very much involved with that organization. And are you seeing great amount of change when it comes to this subject? More attention, more resources are being put for this?
Yes, absolutely. Division 44 is doing some amazing stuff. There are workbooks now that are gender sensitive and informed, and affirmative care, which is what we kind of use to being, SGM and LGBTQ plus, affirming of someone's identities. There's tons of workbooks and manuals and articles, and we are starting to get in there in terms of really understanding what works and how to make it work, and unpathologizing people, just understanding that sexual orientation exists on a continuum, gender identity exists on a continuum, and labels exist for our own convenience and how we want to identify ourselves, but not for the need for us to categorize others. And I would have to say Division 44 is paving the way.
Nice. Olivia, since you started this journey, how have you seen change? You've seen it in individuals. How are you seeing the light systemic wise, programming wise?
I see it mostly through clients, actually. Okay. It's amazing in the course of a year how you see someone else become more accepted, feel more accepted. That's what kind of speaks to me about the state of society, is how they reflect it to me.
Dr. Amy has a whom. You want to expand on that, Dr.
Amy? This clinician is fantastic. Any client would be so lucky to have her. I want her to be my therapist, but that's apparently not a thing that she can do because she's not licensed. And, But no, Olivia's got it. That's it, on point.
Let me ask them, just as with your clients, again, it's an off the thought process question. Is the battle more internal or external?
Dr. Vide, these are great questions. It is really, it's twofold. So we know, we've talked blue in the face about society and family, et cetera. But you are absolutely right. I think it was, I forget the YouTube person who had kind of said about that kind of internalizing of the critic. So what happens is that a lot of people have internalized homophobia or internalized transphobia. So this idea that even within the community, I don't want to be that gay, or I don't want to look like that in terms of trans issues. So there's a lot of internalized negativity. And that's part of what I do as a clinician, is try to work through that and sort out someone's feelings and assumptions, et cetera, that they may harbor towards themselves for identifying a particular way. So you're right. You got it coming from inside. You got it coming from outside. It's just all over the place. Hard to escape.
Olivia, any add?
I would agree. I think that's why it's so difficult to conquer, because it's every angle.
Well, we're still going to start winding it down, because we could go on forever and I would never get Dr. Amy back and not get Olivia back, because I always want to set up for more. Ladies, I always like, as much as possible when I host these epic conversations, to have the participants give call to actions.
Love it.
So I'm going to ask Olivia first, what is your call to action or actions for the viewers and listeners, whether they're doing it live, watching this live, and enjoying this live, or enjoying on the replay? What is a call to action or call to actions you would want everyone out there who is enjoying this epic conversation?
Sure. I think I would say that we're all prone to stereotype. It's something that's deep within us, but if you take the time to just look at people on an individual basis, like as a human, who are you? It makes it so much easier to connect and to understand other people who are different from you.
Well said. Dr. Amy.
Educate and advocate. I think that one, ignorance is not really an excuse. So you don't know what you don't know. And we have an option to kind of go out there and an obligation to learn more and synthesize more and take it from people who are in the community and have lived and breathed this experience. And with that education, advocate, teach others, spread the news, live a truth that is synonymous with that. Be a true ally.
I will add on to that. The word that's come up in my mind is invest.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily meaning investing money. I'm talking about investing time.
Yes.
I work in the arena of helping fathers. And every time I meet a father for the first time, where I do my work, I sit him in our place and I say, tell me your story.
Yes. And that's it. Just that openness to just wanting to know about someone's life and experience. It speaks to that human quality. Yeah.
M. Sanchez says, by asking who are you, we find out that we are more alike than we think. Absolutely.
Amen.
That's one. M. Sanchez, that's one of the things that I've had the greatest benefit doing this journey online for over 10 years, that the more people I chat, the more I see that a lot of us have things in common.
Yes.
So very, very, very well said. And as I say, the more I know, the more I need to know.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
So I'm a firm believer in that. Well, ladies, I'd like to thank you for, as I say, hitting it out of the park since the World Series just finished in regards to that. Olivia, thank you for helping make this an epic conversation.
Thanks for having
Olivia,
me.
Anytime. There's going to be a part 2, so I'm requesting you're part of the part 2. Absolutely. And I really appreciate your passion.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, we need more people that honestly care, because it's a quality that's missing a lot of times in our society today. So I'd like to say thank you for your care.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated. Dr. Amy, man, you rocked. Like to say thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, find out more about you, obviously I'm going to exchange your contact information with Dr. Tachi, because Dr. Tachi's been on for the whole thing. So, and some others. So you got some magic dust going on. So how can people get in touch with you?
By all means, everything but carrier pigeon works well. So at Twitter, I'm Amy Ellis, PhD. You can email me, amy.ellis@nova.edu. I am happy to connect, collaborate, discuss, chat, whatever it might be. Seriously, open to anything.
Well, I would like to say to everyone, I will have the contact information. Dr. Tachi is going, wait, you teach at Nova? So Dr. Tachi, you may want to, you're probably not camera, but on the after show, Dr. Tachi taught there for 10 years.
See, we're more than neighbors. We're like professional like siblings.
Okay. Fantastic. I will certainly provide the contact information for Dr. Amy on the post with the replay of our epic conversation. I am Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of epic conversations. This is the place for epic conversations. 2018 award winner, innovation-wise, handed out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Before I let go of this epic conversation, I'd like to thank a number of people. So on the Get Vocal side, Zach P., thank you for being on the whole thing. Tachi, thank you for being on the whole thing. Lala, thank you for being on the whole thing. M. Sanchez, thank you for being the first person in the room and being on for the whole thing. Also want to thank other people who stepped in, like Big Bad Brad, Melvin Lars. On the YouTube end, because we had some YouTubers. I love my YouTubers. U4Sight for you too. Thank you so much. I know some one or two other people jumped in. On the Periscope side, we had I Can Do Dave from Australia jump in, and also some others. And if I forgot you to mention you, it's because of my head, not my heart. All right. So I'd like to say thank you for everyone watching live on the replay. This is broadcast live on November 4th. On November, I think it's on Wednesday night, I believe, we have a friend of Dr. Tachi, Sean and Murray, who's going to be talking about a book called, I'm totally forgot now. TSO. I can't remember it. I thought I remembered it, and I totally had a brain clamp. But you know what? I'm going to be proficient and see if I can remember the art of association, the seduction of something about that. Just follow me on Twitter or follow me.
Check it out.
You'll know the title. That just we'll find out.
Yeah.
Just tune in. All right. The art of seduction. Thank you, Dr. Tachi. Yes, she is going to be on Wednesday evening, I believe. just follow me. I think it's Wednesday evening, and she's going to be talking about her book, The Art of Seduction. She is the second time she's going to be on, because the first time she was on, she talked about a screenplay she's writing called Chicago 1919, and it's all about the race riots in Chicago in 1919. So now she's going to come on and talk about The Art of Seduction. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles. You're a solution for someone's problem. Always aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. God bless. Peace be all. Keep the faith. And thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.